Hello everyone and welcome to Purple Rose Crafts. Today we're going to be making this nice cabled headband. So we're going to go over some basic stitches today, how to cable in both directions. As you can see here, we're going both ways with our cabling. And we're also going to talk about a new knitted cast on that we haven't done prior called the twisted rib cast on. So if you'll notice the bottom here, it's more twisted. And the materials we're using for this pattern is our loops and threads in the Impeccable Brights. And the color here we're using is called Popsicle Blue. And we're using our 4.5mm knitting needles for that. And to get started, we're going to start by casting on 22 stitches. And this is a beginner video for learning how to cable. And we're also talking about a new knitted cast on. So this is actually our twisted knitted cast on. It kind of looks like it's twisting. The cast on row here at the bottom is twisted and it's just so pretty. So this one doesn't really matter so much as far as what our cast on looks like. This is just a favorite of mine, so it's one that I do quite often. So in order to make this twisted stitch, we're going to insert our knitting needle into between the first and second stitch on our knitting needle on the left needle here. So we're going to just insert straight through between the two stitches and then wrap our yarn around like we normally would for any knit stitch or a cast on, pull it up through the stitches and loop it over as if we were doing a normal knitted cast on. So let's catch our front leg of the yarn over our left hand needle and then pull our needle out. Now keep this one loose because you'll want to have room to stick your right needle back in between those two stitches. And we're going to continue wrapping our yarn, bringing it back through, and then again twist your stitches and catch that left hand leg over your left hand needle. Okay, so we're going to do a couple more of these. We're casting on 22 stitches here for this headband. As I'm working my cast on, I usually stick my needle back in between the two stitches and then cinch up my yarn so it's tight against that needle. Okay, so we're pulling our needle out here, putting it back between the stitches, and then cinching down our yarn. All right, here we have our 22 stitches on our left hand needle. Now we're going to go ahead and start with our setup row. This row is going to be considered the right side of our work, and then all even rows working through this pattern are going to be the wrong side of the work, okay? So we're going to be using straight knit and purl stitches, nice and simple. We're going to slip at the beginning of our row to make our nice straight edge, as we've done in our the scarf pattern that I posted in the description below. And then we're going to also insert 2 cables. So we're going to actually make 2 cables going up our headband. Okay, so let's get started. The beginning stitch is going to start with just a slip. We will slip it and work it at the end of the row, and it will make our nice straight edge, okay? Which will make it so nice for a headband that you're gonna wear, or you're gonna give to a child, or whoever you give your projects to. Okay, so our first stitch is we slipped at one, and then we knit the first stitch, and now we're going to purl the second. This is gonna help our cables pop out of our work a little bit better. And then we're going to knit 6 stitches in a row. That will be our cable section once we get to the cabling part. So 1, 2, knit 6. That is our 6 there. And then we're going to purl 1. Knit 2 more. purl one again, and then knit 6 more for the second cable. Now we're going to do our 2 cables in reverse order as I showed you at the beginning of the video. And it's going to be 2 cables going opposite directions. That way you can see how we do both of those. And it also has that vertical band up the middle, kind of separating our 2 cables. Okay, so 2, 4, 6 knits there, and then we're going to finish with a purl, knit, purl as our last 3 stitches. So I will write this pattern out in the description below if you missed any of those stitches, and then of course it'll be posted on the blog as well, purplrosecrafts.com. And we always finish our rows with a purl stitch. Okay, it doesn't matter where we are in our work, we want to finish with a purl stitch. So you'll see in our even rows, every single even row, we're gonna finish with a purl 2 because we want to purl that last stitch. Okay, so there's our first row. This is our setup row. You can't really see a whole lot going on here yet. We can see the beginnings of some V-stitches here along our cables, but really not a whole lot happening yet. All right, so all of our even rows, every row even going forward is going to be a slip one purlwise. So we insert our needle as if we're purling. Sorry. Because this is a purl, but we are holding our yarn in the back, we have to bring our yarn back to the front. Okay, through between the stitches as if we were, as if we had, say, knitted that first one, okay? And then purl this one, and then we're going to knit the next. And now we're going to purl the next 6 stitches. So this is, again, this is our cable section. In the next row, we're gonna do the cables, but we want to purl each stitch between, on our even rows when we're going back across the back of the work. This is 6 purls. Okay, so that's our 6. And now we're going to bring our yarn back to the front. We're going to knit 2 purls and then another knit. And then 6 more purls for the second cable. Okay, 1 more purl. And then we're going to finish with a knit and 2 purls. So we finish our row always with a purl stitch. All right. Okay. Purl. And a final purl to finish our row. There we go. So now we can see our knit stitches a little bit more clearly here in this middle section, as well as here. Our purls on the needle look like a bump, but when we actually get them worked, they end up going behind and popping out the knit stitches. All right, so let's get started with the first cabling row. All right, so now we're starting with our first cabling row. This is row number 3, if you're keeping track. So first we're gonna do, as we have done in each row so far, slip our first stitch purlwise. So as if we're purling it, but don't purl it. And then knit your first one. All right, purl the next stitch. And now we're going to cable. So what we're gonna do is we're going to hold on to our right needle, and then we're gonna take our, this is a new introduction of a tool. It is our cable needle. So you'll see that it does have this bit of a V happening in the middle. It's also very thin. So it's really meant to allow our yarn to move and tighten and loosen as needed as we cable, okay? So our first cable we're going to do is we're going to move our first 3 stitches onto our cable needle. Now this one we're going to hold in front. The second cable we're going to always hold it in the back. So bring our 3 off. They're not going to go anywhere because they're on the cable needle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to knit the first 3 stitches off of our left hand needle. So insert our hook, our needle, insert our needle, knit the 3 stitches off of our left hand needle. And now we're going to let our left hand needle go. I usually pull my needle up so nothing falls off of this one. And then now we're going to go back and knit the 3 off of our cable needle. So now we're going to go back and knit the 3 that we just put onto our cable needle. So we're going to start with the first one. As you noticed when we inserted our cable needle, we inserted our stitches from this side of the needle, and now we're going to work them from this side of the needle. So we slide them down. All right, so we don't want to twist them, turn them over. We just want to move them to the side and then knit them after. Okay, so now we're going to knit those 3 stitches. So there's 1 and 2, and as you can see, it's a little bit tight. That's normal. And then our final stitch, we can maybe give it a little bit of a tug to give us some room. So what it's doing is it's actually cinching up the next stitch over and pulling on that yarn. Okay, so there's our 3. And now we have our cable. So that's our cable. It doesn't look like anything yet, which is completely normal. Once we get another couple of rows done, we will see what happens here. Okay, now in the center of our work, we're going to purl 1, knit 2, purl 1, and then we're going to do our second cable. Okay, and now we're going to cable our second cable. Okay, so now we're going to take our cable needle again. We're going to insert our 3 stitches there, slip them off of our left hand needle. Now this time we're going to hold them in behind our work. As I said, this one was in front, the second one is going to be behind. All right, and now we're going to insert our needle into the left hand needle, knit our 3 stitches that are remaining on the left hand needle from our cable section, and then we're going to go back and knit our 3 stitches from our cable needle. All right, so there's our 3 stitches. We're going to pull them over to the side here. It is helpful if you are a little bit looser of a knitter for cables, just because it does take extra yarn to pull these stitches over to the side. As you can see, I am a tighter knitter, and sometimes it is a little bit harder to kind of get those stitches, but as I knit them, I am loosening things off here so we have a little bit more room. All right, so that's our second cable. Now we're going to finish with a purl, knit, purl to finish our row. Purl, knit, purl. There we go. Okay, so it's not looking like a whole lot yet. What we're actually having happen here is we have some bunching with our 6 stitches where our cables are. That's normal. And then we've got some spreading out happening in the middle and on the end. That's completely normal. So now we're going to do our even row again. We're going to follow our stitches back across as we did in the even row. All right, so here we are at the end of our wrong side row. So we have our cables that we can see a little bit more clearly now. Here they are popping from the behind stitches. And we can see there's a bit of a pop happening here in the middle as well, which we put our 2 knits in the center, which gives us our, like, basically a straight line up the center of our headband. So we're going to continue. Now we're going to do a cable row every 6 rows. And for us to do that, so now what we have is our a regular row between our cable rows, and then our even row that we just did on the back side of the work. So we're going to go, regular row, wrong side row, regular row, wrong side row, and then another cable row after that. So it's going to be every 6 rows. Okay. So now to do basically our regular row, the between the cables row on the right side of the work, we're going to slip as if we're purling, as we always do. And then knit the first one. This is basically the same row as our row 1, which is our setup row before we cabled, okay? So knit 1, purl 1, knit 6. And as you can see, after we finish that wrong side row, our stitches are much looser. We can work them with much more ease than we do on the cable row. All right. And I will make a definite pattern, possibly even a download for this pattern on the blog. Then when we got past our cables, we did a purl, 2 knits, a purl, and then now we're back to the cable. So we're going to continue knitting our 6. And then we're going to finish with a purl, knit, purl to finish the row. So now that we finished the next right side row, you can see a lot more clearly how the cables are popping, how our center section here, our center straight line is popping, and then how our outside rows here are popping as well. So let's go ahead and we'll do our wrong side row here back on the way back, and then we will come back. We'll do another right side row, that exact same row we just did, another wrong side row, and then we'll do another cable. So I'm going to come back at the cable row and we'll go through that cable nice and slow once again. Okay, here we are. Now we're back after we have done our next several rows. We're ready to do another cable row. And as you can see, now that we're kind of getting more rows on, we can see this center row here is popping out nicely with our purls beside the cables. And then our we have another purl column here happening up on the sides, and it is making this outside one here pop out quite well as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our cable row one more time. So we're gonna slip, knit. So we have a couple of options here when we do our cables. You can continue cabling as we are doing, holding the yarn in front on the first one and then holding in the back on the second. It will continue to look just like this here, and that's fine. You also have the option of doing the opposite. You can make it sort of like a twisting and then an untwisting as you go up. We're not going to do that today, but of course there's so many options with cables. You know, you can do 2 stitches, not 3 on each cable needle. There's just, you know, so many different options. And I have quite a few different options posted on my Pinterest board. If you'd like to see that, I will link that below as well. There's lots of different kind of knitting tutorials and different ideas for cabling as well on there. All right, so we're at our cables. We're going to slip our first 3 stitches and hold them in front and knit our next 3 off of our left hand needle before we do the stitches on our cable needle as well. There's our 3. Slide it up on my needle a little so when I let it go it doesn't fall down, and we're going to knit our next 3 off of our cable needle. So just straight knitting stitches, nothing fancy except that we're doing it from the cable needle and doing the twist. All right, there is our 3, and as you saw, the last one there was getting pretty tight, but that's okay. It will loosen up when we do our next row. All right, so purl, knit 2 purl, and then we're going to cable again. Okay, so bringing our yarn back to the back after our purl stitch. Now we're going to do the same. We are going to slip our 3 stitches onto our cable needle, and we're going to slide them off and hold them in the back again. Put them in behind. Okay, so now we're going to knit our 3 off of the left hand needle. And slide this down so it doesn't fall off. And bring our cable needle back towards the front. Come over to the side. All right, and now we're going to knit our 3 stitches off of our cable needle. All right, and as I said before, we're not twisting our cable stitches on the cable needle. We're just going to slide them to the side and knit them as we put them onto the needle. And we finish with a purl, knit purl to finish our row. And we're gonna go back along with our even row, our wrong side row. We're gonna continue working our headband in this fashion. So we're gonna continue cabling on every 6th row. On every even numbered row is our wrong side row, which we've done a couple of times already. And then we're gonna use our row number 1 2 more times before we go ahead and cable again. So that being said, that does, now that I've said that out loud, it sounds a little bit confusing. Keep in mind, it's just going to be a 6 row repeat. Okay, where every even numbered row is going to be worked exactly the same way. The only difference on our right side row is that every a 3rd right side row is going to be a cable row instead of a regular knitting row. Okay, like our setup row that we did here at the bottom. The pattern is listed down below in the description. I've also included a link to the blog post, which will be live as well. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave those in the comments. If anything wasn't quite clear, I am more than happy to answer any questions that you have about this pattern. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel and to be notified of upcoming videos being posted. We have lots more knitting tutorials coming, as well as we're working on our granny square knit along, let's call it. We're posting at least every Wednesday, sometimes as well on Saturday mornings as well, if I am able to do an extra video each week. Okay, so hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because we have lots more coming in the coming weeks. All right, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.